So I was thinking about my own kids the other night as we were making dinner. One of them was cutting up vegetables for tacos. The other one was setting the table. And my youngest was eating all of the cheese she had just shredded for dinner. And it struck me in those moments that it can feel like chores asking them to be a part of this. But really, those experiences that they're having are really important learning opportunities. And it made me think about why it actually matters that kids learn about food, not just the nutrition in the abstract, but really understanding where their food comes from and how to prepare it. So let's start with the most obvious part about learning about food, and that is nutrition. So there's some strong evidence that when kids help to prepare meals, they eat more fruits and vegetables. A large Canadian study of more than 3,000 children found that those who regularly cooked at home were more likely to choose healthier foods, not only at home, but when they were also out with friends. And other studies have demonstrated this as well. Kids who cook are twice as likely to meet daily recommendations for vegetables compared to those who don't. And it's not about making gourmet meals. Even stirring pancake batter or spinning the lettuce counts as participating. And if you have a picky eater at home, this is where it gets even more important that you involve them. Research on repeated exposure tells us that kids need between 8 to 15 low-pressure experiences with the food before they're willing to eat it. And cooking counts as one of those. One of those exposures. Getting them involved is the first step to acceptance. But learning food isn't just about what ends up in their mouths. It is also about helping them to build autonomy and confidence. A randomized trial in Norway looked at hands-on cooking programs in schools and found that kids who participated developed stronger cooking confidence and food skills, and that those skills lasted months after the program ended. Think about that. Confidence in the kitchen is part of building a life skill. And when a child learns how to crack an egg or use a knife safely or make a salad on their own, they start to see themselves as capable individuals. And they go from being passive recipients of food to active participants in it. And that shift matters. Autonomy in one area of life, like cooking, translates into autonomy elsewhere. Kids who are trusted to take part in meal work at home build a stronger sense of competence, and that is directly related to higher self-esteem and resilience. So now let's zoom out for a minute and talk about learning where food comes from. Programs like school gardens have been studied pretty extensively. A review of 14 studies found that students who participated in gardening programs increased their fruit and vegetable intake by as much as 1 serving per day. That's a huge impact from something as simple as planting a seed. Another study out of Texas A&M looked at elementary students who gardened at school and compared them to kids who didn't. The gardening group not only ate more produce, they were also more willing to try unfamiliar vegetables. So when we say that gardening connects kids to food, it's not just a nice idea. It is actually backed by real, measurable changes in what they eat. And again, like the gourmet cooking, this doesn't have to be an elaborate garden. A pot of basil or chives growing in the windowsill, or even watching a lettuce regrow. This sparks the same kind of connection. And then, of course, there is the piece about our family. Dozens of studies have shown that family meals are linked to healthier diets, lower rates of disordered eating, better mental health. And importantly, it doesn't matter if the meal is a home-cooked feast or takeout pizza. The consistent act of gathering is what matters more than what we're eating. But when kids cook with their parents or their grandparents, they're not just learning skills, they are learning family stories. We've talked about this on The Weekly Parent. They're learning cultural traditions and the kinds of stories that build their confidence and their sense of identity. So here's the bottom line. Kids don't need another lecture about eating healthy. They need experiences about how to make these decisions themselves. Experience that let them chop, stir, plant, taste, experiment, and ask questions. Experiences that make food something to explore rather than something to fight about. because those experiences are what actually change behavior. They are what help our kids carry healthy habits from childhood into adulthood. And that is why I have put together a month-long food learning calendar. It's super simple. One activity per week designed to help you and your kids learn by doing. In week 1, you'll grow something together. In week 2, you'll cook something together. In week 3, you'll experiment with food as a science. And in week 4, you will celebrate food as connection and culture. These are not complicated ideas. They don't take hours, I promise, but they do create memories, and more importantly, they will help your kids build skills. So the next time you're cooking dinner or grocery shopping or even pulling weeds in the garden or the yard, think of it as an opportunity to let your kids in on that process. Just invite them in. Don't force it. Because food learning isn't about perfection. Like everything else I say, it is about participation. And participation is what helps kids grow into curious, confident, and competent eaters. I'll see you next time.